I'm Hayley Atwell. Hi. Oh, hi. Hayley Atwell. Hi.
Can you just talk a little bit about your preparation and how you see the character?
Yeah, well, Peggy, she's an officer, so the whole point of it is that she was, physically fit enough to do what she's doing and, hold these machine guns convincingly. So we trained for, it was 8 months, the duration of the filming, and before that, just to get into shape. And then I think, the look of her does the womanly side, justice. And I love playing her. I think she's a kind of a modern woman, and she's ahead of her time, and she's strong. She can save him as much as he can save her. So yeah, it was great fun.
Guys, right here, straight ahead, right here. Thank you.
All right, Robert Downey. So this is quite a big deal. A premiere with this carpet like this, all the fans.
It's enormous. I've never been to something quite like this before.
Does it sort of like bring it home that this is, a big deal, big superhero movie?
Yeah, I guess so. You have no idea of the scale of it until it's in front of you, and this has been a project for me for over a year now, so I feel very proud to be here.
When you were an actor signing on to something like this, potentially have sequels, and a lot of people are invested in it. Is that a big commitment to make, knowing that something that could be a part of your life for a long time?
Yeah, and I think it means that you kind of have to be clear about why you want to be a part of it, and I love the script and the people involved in it. You have an amazing cast, and also Hugo Weaving and Toby Jones and Stanley Tucci and Dominic Hooper and Sebastian Stan, and Chris, it just kind of grew as something that I couldn't say no to.
Right.
I'm so pleased I did. I'm thrilled to be part of Marvel.
And you grew up in London?
I did, London and Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, cool.
Can't you tell by the accent?
Very obvious.
I play Peggy Carter, who is an agent, and she works very closely with Colonel Phillips, played by Tommy Lee Jones. And she is kind of the right-hand woman to Colonel Phillips, and comes across Steve Rogers, who plays the Cap, or who becomes the Cap. And she develops a kind of strained, exciting relationship with him that leads to a romance, but it's not without its kind of frisson. So there's a kind of a real sexual tension between them, which is really good fun to play. And so it's about kind of encouraging and supporting his journey, becoming Captain America, the first Avenger, and at the same time, having her own kind of love affair with him. The most appealing thing for me when I read the script was, this is a woman who is in this male-dominated environment, which is something I can relate to, which a lot of women I know can relate to, and she has a fight in her, which I always find very attractive when I read scripts. I'm looking for something that has something I can get my teeth into, or some kind of complication, something that makes me feel like I want to question who this woman is. And Peggy had this mystery about her, thinking, how can she look that way and be that skillful and that kind of elegant, and yet what's her background? What made her do the things that she wants to do? How did she end up in the army in this position? And so it was kind of that, really, the depth of the possibility of playing someone, especially of that time in the 40s when opportunities weren't as they are now.
Yes, I think it works.
Peggy has a career, and she has a lot of self-respect, and she's pretty sick and tired of lots of men kind of not taking her seriously in the army and playing around with her. I think Peggy relates to someone really fighting for what they believe in and really having to struggle all the time to prove themselves, and she, being the only woman in this environment, knows exactly what that feels like. It's not just the normal, everyday love story. There's something else.
Steve learned a lot from Peggy Carter. If you go back and look at the first Avenger, that is the essential relationship that I think turned him into who he is today. It turned him into Captain America. Her sense of integrity, her call to action are all qualities that have been ingrained in Steve and are his best qualities. And they come from example from Peggy. And so I think it was critical that her character embody those essential qualities, because he wouldn't be who he is without them.
I'm gonna need a rain check on that dance.
A week next Saturday at the Stork Club.
You got it.
8 o'clock on the dot. Don't you dare be late.
Through a long audition process that spanned a few months, I had a final screen test where I was taken to Shepperton Studios in the UK, and there was a full film crew there, and I had hair and makeup, and I had to learn some dialogue and some fight sequences, and it was just kind of like a screen test to see if I was, you know, kind of confident enough to take on the challenge of playing someone who worked in the military, and so it was quite a daunting experience, but so thrilling.
I want to start with, this is an unusual film because this was, I think, the first movie online that people were reporting like every little detail of the casting process. Whoever was going in to meet for the part, I don't know if you were aware of all that, but like there was like lists of all the actors reading. It was crazy how the minutia of this movie. Were you aware of this as you were going through the process of casting?
No, I wasn't aware of any of that, the idea of lists. And then I did have a friend who called me and went, "Are you going to read for Captain America?" I was, "How do you know that?" Because it's all over the internet. And so I then purposefully absolutely did not, because I didn't want to have to walk into the audition process with that in the back of my head, because I think that would have just been an unnecessary pressure that I didn't want to take in with me. So I just kind of ignored it all.
Well, you actually bring up to another thing I wanted to talk about, which is deleted scenes. Every movie has them. Were there a lot of scenes with your character that didn't make it, or just like a few little bits here and there?
There was a little bit which I thought would have been lovely, but which I think in terms of pace of the Kruger chase, the beginning, kind of when he runs after them, there's a moment where you know when he pushes her out the way and she falls on the ground and she says, "I had him," and then he runs off.
I had him! Sorry!
In between that running sequence, you see her hail a car. The car stops right in front of her before it hits her, and she grabs the man, and the car then starts to still move off, and she grabs the man from the moving car, throws him out of the car, gets in and drives off, and it was so slick and cool. But they had to cut it, which is a real shame. So it's somewhere we can use it for the sequels.
I was going to say, they have these things called DVDs and Blu-rays now, where they often do deleted scenes.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be on there, I hope, yeah. Yeah, we started off with something very, very different, and it was almost kind of futuristic or very sci-fi, and then decided actually to go the completely opposite, and Anna Shepherd came on board, and she had done brilliant work on Inglourious Bastards and Schindler's List, so she was very familiar with the time and had done it so well, and she wanted them to be incredibly real, practical outfits and uniforms that they would have worn, and that was great, because she also just said, "Darling, we should have the fabulous red dress in the scene," and made this wonderful costume which wasn't in the script, as a way of going, this is what you can envision Peggy being like if she was on a date with him, so it creates the kind of the romance, the fantasy a bit more for them both. And that was really nice. And I remember that scene, that day, of walking onto set in that dress, having been in uniform for 5 months, and it was silent. And I was so embarrassed. I was just like, but of course you can't slouch in a dress like that, otherwise you look like mutton dressed as lamb. And so I had to just kind of walk really slowly. And I was in high heels, so I had to walk it very slowly. So it was just, you could have just heard a pin drop when I walked on, which was great, because I guess it was the first test of whether or not that was going to work in the film, and it did. Well, I had a court shoe, so it was about 3 inches, I suppose, which is completely workable in. I don't think she really could have run that fast in them, but yeah, they wanted to make it look like it was real, that she could do those stunts in what she was wearing, and it still being appropriate to the time.
It's Hayley Atwell, man. Isn't she great?
She was fantastic.
She's so good. But there was the scene in Cap, where she comes into the bar in the red dress.
Sure.
We did this scene, and we must have done this scene, the cover, John Haley. She came in the red dress, and she tells me, a little about dancing and whatever. And Joe, we must have done that take. I'm not joking, like 15 times, and the only reason is because Joe he'd come in and give Hayley a new direction every time, and every time she crushed it. The things she was doing, every take, I was like, how is this girl doing something new and different and great every single take? I think Joe was just having fun watching an amazing actress be great. She's phenomenal.
Why do you love Peggy?
I love Peggy because she's not intimidated by the fact that she herself doesn't have any superhero powers, and she's not focusing on limitations, so she works with her strengths, and that she has a strong sense of self. She's not going to be swayed. Her integrity is intact, her moral compass is intact, and she uses her intelligence as well as her physical power to save the day.
Are those the things that Cap loves about Peggy as well?
I think so. I think what I loved about the first Avenger film was that she fell for who he was, the character that he displayed in all the training to try and find the right person to become this super soldier. And there was something in him that she, I think, felt connected to. And it's partly that, you know, his physicality was at a disadvantage to him. And her physicality as a woman was at a slight disadvantage to her. And so them sharing those obstacles that they had to kind of fight to be seen and to be represented and have the platform to be able to do their job because they're the best ones at it, just meant that was something that they shared. So I think their relationship was based on that, which I think is really wholesome and endearing. I love playing her because I think she has a very strong sense of self, and that she's unshakable in her kind of her moral compass and her own integrity, and that's something I think she shares with Steve before Steve had become Captain America. That's the thing that connects them.
I bet you share a lot with your character, yeah?
Oh my gosh, I try. She's definitely someone I would look up to. I do love her ability to focus on her strengths rather than her weaknesses, and not to be intimidated by what challenges are presented to her, that she just embraces it and moves forward. I think it's a wonderful quality to have.
Hello, Captain Carter. She knows her value, doesn't she? It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Tell us, won't you? It's been almost 10 years you've been playing this character.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, a decade.
You brought the whole thing to a close in the very end of Avengers Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the story continues.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to What If. Does that feel awesome?
It feels like the gift that keeps on giving, but that's also partly because of the fans. They love Peggy. They've brought her back.